Mayor. Let me run through these very quickly. First point of interest is there is a Storm Expo coming up this weekend. It's Saturday, June 16th at the American Bank Center. It is sponsored by HEB, and it is the 2018 Coastal Bend Storm Expo. And the intent here is to get people prepared for the hurricane season. It is a free event, and it also will have door prizes. The point number two, the city's Office of Emergent Management is in the atrium today, passing out information relevant to the upcoming storm seasons, and are passing out information that is also free on getting prepared for the upcoming season. The Development Services Department is hosting a workshop that is free to the public for those residents who might be doing some construction on their own. They're not architects, they're not designers, they're not builders, but they're homeowners who would be doing construction of their own. We're going to hold two of these. One will be June 15th, and the other one will be July 10th. And this will be at the Ben F. McDonald Public Library in Greenwood, on Greenwood Drive. There is a seating capacity issue of 40 participants per event, so we would, those that are interested in potentially doing that, please sign up and hope to see large crowds at that event. We also have drought contingency measures. This is something that I want to go through now, almost reading this, Mayor, if I may. The Lake Corpus, Christi, and the Choke Canyon are at 40%. So in all likelihood, we will implement stage 1 tomorrow, and it's the mild, it's a water watch, essentially, but it does provide for certain mechanisms to be triggered in terms of water conservation. The first of those is lawn watering. That'll be limited to once per week, before 10 a.m. in the morning and after 6 p.m. in the evening. Watering by hand is allowed at any time using a shut-off nozzle. Foundations can be watered, and these are people that have recently poured a concrete slab once per week with a hand hose, or not recently poured a slab, but rather just washing of your driveway and so forth. Commercial car washes and landscape nurseries are not affected during this stage. That's important. And once the combined storage increases to up to 50%, then we would come out of stage 1.
Is the one day, and maybe this is just the day we picked, but is it part of the ordinance, or is this just normally that the day that you're on the garbage cycle pickup is the day you water? That's not part of the rule?
No, we took that.
We
No,
just
sir.
did that to kind of remind ourselves
No,
that
sir.
was the day.
It's
Okay,
once a week.
But once a week?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
And for the next item, if I could ask for Tony Perez and Michael Macias and Gloria Posada to join me down in the well. Mayor, what we're looking at to doing, rather than having individual departments come forward for presentations every time there's some recognitions to be made and be had by staff, we want to take an opportunity but bring them all down in order to conserve a little bit of time, and not to conserve time, but not just to conserve time, but to recognize you all for what you've done. Don't get me wrong on that. Come stand over. I want to recognize first Tony Perez, who is a battalion chief, and firefighter paramedic Michael Macias. These two gentlemen went into lives, put their lives at risk to save someone literally in a structure fire. Went in, saved an elderly gentleman, and for that, these firefighters received the life-saving award. And I really appreciate what you guys do, and so do the people who depend on you for protection of life and property. Thank you for everything you've done. You know, I can't speak for everybody, but I have no idea what I would do if if a building was on fire and somebody was in there. I don't know what I would do at that given moment. People would like to think what they would do, but you really don't know until you're there. And these gentlemen did what needed to be done. Gloria, Posada, congratulations to you for receiving Outstanding IT Service and Support Award at the 2018 Texas Digital Government Summit Best of Texas Awards. Thank you for all that you've done in our IT department and in pulling together the Enforce system. Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to pick-
The chair does, you know.
Oh, well, the chair moves from week to week. I don't know. Sometimes it's up and sometimes it's down.
To the left, to the left. I think there's a song like that. Yay. Thank you so much. Yeah, more. Thank you. Was it Callie? Thank you so much. Thank you. Go in. We want to get out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
What is that? I thought it was a footrest or something. Is that not your verification?
Let's go.
Huh? Sure, I'll put it down. Maybe I'll sit on it. I don't know. Oh, this is Lucy's?
Mayor, we have a couple of other presentations from staff, Mayor, but I don't know if you wanted to waive the order of the agenda and bring up the presentation.
Yeah,
by
I mean,
Gulf
we were
Coast
shooting
Coast.
we were shooting for about 12:30 for a presentation on item number 35. And I think out of respect, since we gave them a kind of a time specific, if we could go ahead and move to item 35 for a presentation. Gulf Coast Growth Ventures, they were here a minute ago. There they are.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. My name is Rob Tully. I'm the venture executive for the Gulf Coast Growth Ventures project with ExxonMobil, a joint venture between ExxonMobil and SABIC. I'm here just to give you a brief update. I was here a little over a year ago, so we haven't really spoken since then, so I'll let you know what's going on across the bay. The first thing I want to do is just remind you of our pledge as we've come into the community, and the first is to provide you with the facts about our project, and the second and also to listen to your questions and any concerns that the community is raising. And second is to be a responsible corporate citizen and a good neighbor. There's a number of places where you can find out information about our project. There is an office over in Portland on Wildcat Drive that members of the public can drop into Monday to Friday. We have it staffed. Jared Young, our public affairs manager, sitting right there, is there, along with Colette Walls and Beth Becerra. Let's move on to the next slide. Or is there a clicker? Thank you. Okay, just what are we building? It's a 1.8 million metric ton a year ethylene plant with 2 polyethylene units and 1 monoethylene glycol unit. The feedstock is coming from oil shale in Texas, so it's creating a lot of jobs in Texas that we're not really looking at when we're talking about some of the numbers I'm going to cover in a page or two, but it's a big economic engine and creating a lot of jobs for the region. Number of jobs, there's about 6,000 construction jobs at the peak. Right now you'll see we're just doing some temporary work. There's not too many people out there, but in 2020 you're going to see a lot of people out on that site. I want to talk about the permanent jobs. So there's over 600 direct jobs, and these are great paying jobs, average about $90,000 per year. And it's everything from process operators to our administrative staff to engineers. We even have a lawyer. So there's just one, though. And,
Everybody's gotta have
we're really, we're really trying to focus on local hires. You'll see that in a minute. And as I know, I've heard this subject of tax abatements come up. Well, even with abatements, we're going to pay over $250 million in taxes through the first 5 years of operation. Project milestones, we announced the site in April of 2017. We immediately submitted our permit request with the TCEQ. We're working through that process right now. We actually had a public meeting over in Portland about 2 weeks ago, well attended, and comments were raised to the TCEQ. We're now in the comment and the response period. We expect that the process will take about a year, and then the TCEQ will make a ruling on the permits, and assuming all goes well, we'll be awarded the permits sometime about mid next year, and that's really when you're going to see the heavy construction start. We can only really do temporary facilities, some infrastructure type work, roads and things like that in the meantime. But there's a lot of work to be done. It's a big site. Just to let you know, startup is planned by mid-2022. We're targeting the end of 2021, so a lot of work to start that up sooner. Talk just a little bit about safety. I'm going to move quickly. We're really trying to get the families involved in safety. So you'll see one building out there, and that's our safety training building. And it's all hands-on, so if you're going to work on scaffold, you actually are going to go in that building, you're going to build scaffold, you're going to climb on it, you're going to climb down, you're going to see hands-on what it takes. You're not going to get lectured by somebody like me saying, be safe, don't fall, that kind of stuff. It's all about hands-on training on everything we do. So there's a lot of moving equipment out there, you'll see hands-on stuff. We have a number of family days where we bring the spouses and the children of the workers out there, and we found that getting the families involved really puts a lot of peer pressure on the worker to be safe and to come home the same way they left in the morning. And you'll see a couple pictures from the latest family day. We actually have a thing called Diggerland where it's got toy, well, they're a little bit bigger than toys, but construction equipment that you can go out there. I've tried to get on there, the team won't let me near the place. So, key milestones, I've talked about the permitting. We're doing road improvements. We're hooking up some utilities. We've got the planned entrance road. If you drive down Wildcat, you'll see the entrance road. It's all dirt right now. We've got temporary offices out there. We're also building a road down to the port. It's a heavy haul road. You'll see it. It's pretty wide. And then I just talk a little bit about the Good Neighbor program. We've had over 120 outreach meetings. Most of those happened in the first half of last year. We heard a lot of feedback from the community of concerns and questions, and we really took those concerns and questions and published a Good Neighbor program that talks about 4 areas where we really are working to have a positive impact on the community as we come in. The first one is quality of life, second is health and safety, and third is education and workforce, and the fourth is environmental stewardship. I just get a couple of highlights. It's quite an extensive program, and I'm not going to try to cover it all here today. Just let's talk about local hiring, education, and workforce development. We've hired over 70 people. 85% of them are local residents. Process operators and frontline supervisors is who we've hired. Most of them are up in the Baytown area, training in our other facilities, so that when we go to start up this plant, they'll have operated these plants for a couple of years. They'll be ready to operate them safely and reliably. We've awarded 17 scholarships for this year's process technology program at Del Mar College. And those are not specific to people coming to our plant. That's for any student that gets into that program and is doing well and showing promise. These scholarships are available. We fully intend to continue that as we go forward, because we know we're drawing on the area, we're drawing on the resources from the area, so we need to kind of contribute into that program to help build it and grow the programs. And I got to tell you, Del Mar's got just an outstanding program. You should be very, very proud of what that college is doing for this area. And the local business initiative, we've over 500 companies have signed up. Most of them are people that provide services, so everything from hotels to restaurants to real estate agents, even lawyers. And we provide those names to anybody coming in to work on our site. So if somebody's coming in and they want to know a real estate agent, there's a list of whoever's signed up that they can talk to. The rest are folks that would actually do work on the site, and they go through a pre-qualification process. We provide those names to the big engineering, procurement, construction contractors. We can't tell them who to hire, but we've pushed them about as hard as I've ever seen us push the EPC contractors to really try to hire locally. And so far, we've had tremendous success. You'll see over 50% of the bidders are local, and I'm really pleased to see that over 90% of the contracts so far have been won by local companies. So you're seeing a lot of local people getting employed on the project so far. Second thing is just around quality of life. This is a picture of roads, and you can see red roads are ones we don't want our construction workers coming in on. The greens are the ones that we want. That's 181 where it turns and heads out towards Taft. We have a construction advisory group. It meets about every 6 weeks to 2 months and meets with local neighbors, with local officials, and really talks about what are the concerns that you have. The main concerns right now are traffic, dust, noise. You would expect those kinds of things when you're building the plant. And we're taking steps to address any concerns that come up from the neighbors so that we deal them with while they're small concerns before they become a big problem. And that's been a very, very successful approach. Just a couple things around, we're trying to get involved in the community. We've gotten involved with over 28 local charities. We don't have very many people in the community right now, but we're doing donations to really try to help get some of the local charities some support as we come into the community. A couple more photographs. We did a lot of work. I think the very first thing we did after we awarded our first contract, it was to Bay Limited. The very next day, Hurricane Harvey hit, and we had these crews ready to do work on our site, but of course our site wasn't really ready for any work to be done. And we ended up working with Bay, and they went out into the community, and in particular on the north side of the Bay, helping clean up debris and just help get people back on their feet. And that's what we did for the first few weeks before we even entered the site. So trying to be a good neighbor and come into the community. And then finally, just in protecting the environment, we've been getting involved with coastal bend bays and estuaries. You can see a few of the other groups that we've been involved with, primarily providing some financial support. But coastal bend bays and estuaries is actually consulting with us. What kind of grass are we going to plant on that? What kind of trees should we put out there? Those types of things, because if you ask a bunch of engineers what kind of trees, you're going to not like the results. So getting some folks that really know what they're doing involved in the planning process early on is really helping. So that's the last of the presentation. You can see the address of our office on Wildcat Drive. There's also our website and our Facebook site where you can go, and we keep those up to date. Jared and his team keep people informed. The last thing I'd like to do is introduce Mr. Paul Guilfoyle. I've been working on this project for about 2 years. I'm going to be retiring at the end of this month. So Paul is going to replace me as the venture executive for the Gulf Coast Growth Ventures project. So I just asked him to introduce himself to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Paul Guilfoyle, and I just want to make sure, I won't take up too much of your time, just so that you can put a face and a name to my successor. And I just did want to start by saying that unlike my successor, I think lawyers are great. So I have nothing against them. So I've been with the company ExxonMobil for 31 years. Most of that has been in manufacturing, running plants like the one we're going to build. The last 2 assignments, though, were involved in actually building large ventures like we're doing here, one in Singapore, and the last one in Baytown, Texas. So I do know that these can be done responsibly, and I know that these things can be done in great partnerships with the communities around us, and so I look forward to working with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You must have started with Exxon at a very young age.
Thank you. Yeah, 21. Yeah.
Well, thank you. But before you sit down, and I don't know what kind of audience we have via the television or anything, but just for the record, your compliments to Delmar were great, and then I think a lot of the folks that you're looking for are people that would like to, do things with their hands and run the plants. Yes. And do some things. And we've got a craft training center here also that will teach young people or adults or people that want to make a career change. These are not, and these are jobs that are going to be paying $60,000 to $90,000 a year. Yeah. And we've got 2 great programs between Delmar and the craft training. And yeah. And while we were visiting today, the comments that I hear from employers, and I think you can back me up on this, is that while you may have a lot of folks that are interested You don't have to have a college education to do
That's
these
right.
type of works, but they're extremely
right.
important, but the companies will teach them. The only test really that young people that are interested or people that want to make a career change is you don't necessarily have to have a particular degree for many of these jobs. You don't have to pass a biology test or a physics test. The test you have to pass in order to get an opportunity is the drug test.
That's right.
If you can't pass the drug test, you can just kiss your career goodbye. And so there's lots of opportunities for young people, and if we can get a message out, we've got people like Exxon and others that are looking for employees. They're willing to train you. They're willing to pay you. But if you can't pass the drug test, game over. And so that's the message we really want to get out is there's plenty of opportunities here, and don't blow it by doing something stupid.
Thank you for bringing that up, Mayor. I did not mention the Craft Training Center, and I should have, because they are very heavily engaged with us. Mike Sandrusi gave us a tour of the facility last week, and we've been involved with him for over a year, planning programs and looking how do we get people trained up, because we think one of our biggest concerns is going to be getting enough qualified tradespeople here as we start to construct the plant. There's a lot of work going on in the area. There's tremendous demand, and most of the people with those trades are kind of hitting retirement age, so.
Yeah, so I think
a big
it's a wonderful
challenge for us.
opportunity.
It sure is.
And I hope people are smart enough to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your presentation. Appreciate it very much. And best of luck on your retirement, Ms. Opal.
I just want to make one comment about, and I think I've shared this with some of you. Having 600 jobs with an average salary of $90,000 a year will be transformative, not just for Corpus Christi, but for the entire region. And we need to begin to look at this venture and other economic development ventures to be the kind of community and the kind of region that will help you attract the kind of talent that you need to either retain here in our community, because that's very important to all of us, or to actually go out and attract talent from outside the area. So I guess we need to make a trip to Baytown and find out what they're doing for fun, because we want to make sure that they can be able to do that here. So I think
Yep.
you'll see a commitment out of this council to trying to help build the region in a way that is sustainable for the kinds of industry and support and growth that we're going to see. And we just love your name, because is growth your middle name? I'm not sure. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate it. And it's 1:30. Do we have it? Are you complete now without your presentation? All right. So I hope you stay in the area for your retirement and don't move somewhere else. All right. Well, thank you so much. Mr. Manager, did you have anything else under yours?
Two very quick presentations.
All right.
With Steve Klepper, who is working on the city performance report. Wanted him to give a quick overview to the council.
All right.
Steve Klepper, Office of Strategic Management. We've been, over the last, well, I'm going to talk about the CPR, the City Performance Report. Over the last 3 months, we've rolled out at a trickle pace 3 departments. Now, by rolling out, what I mean to say is that we have a City Performance Report that is available on the city website, where you can see performance information about the department and the activities. The city manager, the interim city manager, asked me if we could speed up the pace, turn the faucet up, and get more departments out there. So I'm pleased to say, since he became interim city manager, we now have 14 departments on the city performance report page. I wanted to walk you through them real conceptually, and then in subsequent weeks, the next council meeting, Chief Rocha is going to be doing fire department. He's going to be followed by animal care, and they're going to be followed by code enforcement. So we're going to have a lot of good departments. I'm going to walk you through and show you how to find it and to see it. The public can look at it. And I think when you look at it, you're going to see, this interesting, useful information about city budgets, what the departments are doing, and all of that. So I have 3 objectives. You can see one objective is to show you where it is on the city's webpage. I'm going to walk you through that. Rick's got the city's cctexas.com webpage on there. Second objective is to talk a little bit about conceptual foundations and the logic of why it's structured the way it is. And the third objective is to talk about how we plan to improve it in the future. So we're just starting to build it, actually. So on the screen there, you see the city webpage. And if you hover over, I'm on the screen. Let's see, how do I get out of that mode? How do I do? No, I'm on that circle thing there. I want to, like, you have to use the mouse? Okay, I have to use the mouse. I'm sorry, I was used to a touch screen now. I'm sorry. On the city webpage, if you go to government, mouse over government, and then you go to city performance, you're going to go to the landing page for the CPR. I'm just going to call it CPR. City performance page. That gives a little introduction to it. One reason why we have that page is because we're going to be building and improving. This will be a gateway for some future things that we're going to go to. But you go from there, the city performance report. And again, you have a little gateway thing here, and it describes it. Then you click on the CPR page. And it goes first to airport, not because Fred says because the airport's the most important. It's because these are listed alphabetically. And so I hit that little down arrow there, and you can see all the departments that are currently on there. And by the way, every week we're adding more departments. So next week you're going to see a couple more departments on there. And hopefully we'll complete the complement here. Wanted to walk you through the components of the CPR. So we've got, and I use a couple different examples. Let's look at solid waste. Now, I'm not giving a department-specific discussion here because that's going to be by the departments. I'm going to give you more conceptual and why it's structured the way it is. Every department page there has an operational profile. They all look different, and the whole purpose of the operational profile is to provide some context. Here, and we're trying to get service levels identified. That's why here I explicitly say, I didn't even do that. Here I explicitly say current service levels. So in solid waste, service levels are really easy to define. How often do you pick up garbage? How often do you pick up brush? How often is the landfill open for the public? All those sorts of things. But we also give some information so you can provide some context to the department. And we're trying to keep this short too, so we can't say everything there is about the department. Another example, you have health department. So health department is in there, it's describing who they are, what they do, kind of services they provide, and all that sort of thing. So for all the different departments, some of the departments we've done a good job at identifying the service. It's one thing to identify a service, it's another thing to identify level of service, and that's a lot more difficult. But we're trying to move in that direction. Another example that we don't have live yet would be on the utilities, water utilities, and an important operational profile comment would be we have 6 little wastewater treatment plants, or 6 wastewater treatment plants, and we have surface water, we have a lake for our water supply. And that's important when you start comparing costs to other cities. During the privatization discussions, what I worked on 20 years ago here, the contractors would come in and talk about how cheap it was to deliver wastewater service for Baltimore or wherever. Yeah, they have one huge wastewater plant. So you have the cost efficiencies. So it's all that kind of stuff that you need to know. So the operational profile is one section. Then we have baseline information section. Now here, we're trying to provide, we have 4 years of trends, annual trend information. And it varies by department, what we put on there. I'm going to go back to solid waste, just because it's got a couple of good examples. We're trying to, in most cases where you have a fee or a charge that's pretty pervasive and representative of what that department does, we have it on there. So here you can see solid waste charge, a monthly charge for residential, stayed flat at $18.84. Okay. Then it shows you, for most departments, we show how many people are budgeted, some expenditure stuff, and then we show some activity information. There's combinations. Now, there's combinations of types of measures or metrics. We understand, I've been doing this for 30 years in different cities. You have efficiency, economy, effectiveness, input, output, demand, all these sorts of things. And we're not trying to get all that. We're to have a combination of things and trying to have less than a dozen of some measures that give you some idea of what's going on in the department over time. And it's really not it's that straightforward either, because some departments, here you have number of collection complaints as the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth item down. Some people might think that a collection, if you want complaints, if complaints are going down, that means you're doing a good job. It's not necessarily true. Complaints might be going down because the citizens are just tired of bothering. Why bother calling the city? I'm going to call those departments that do something, and their complaints are going up. So all of these different things are going on, and that's why I have lots of different measures in there. The baseline measures are not tied to mission elements. They're tied to the department as a whole. And when I say mission elements, on the performance indicator section, you're going to see on the left, in the case of solid waste here, 3 mission elements. And now the mission elements are part of our financial accounting system. So we have costs, all part of the budget counting string. So the mission elements here, they're out there. And then we have the goals that are associated with that element. Every department's got it set up this way. And we're trying to instill a discipline of thinking, okay, you've got a mission element, and what's your goal? And I don't mean annual goal. What is the goal of the mission element? What are you trying to accomplish, sort of thing? And then how do you measure how well you're doing it? And so you have the parent-child relationships conceptually, mission element, goals, measures, and then the actual values. Now here on the performance indicators, you have the option of getting annual numbers. I'm going to go, now they have to have the values in there. I haven't picked anything in particular. One of the neat things here, it's got the charting capabilities. So, Gilbert on municipal court showed the chart of revenue collected, and it spiked up real high in February of each month. Well, it's the warrant roundup, stuff like that. For management, there's some measures in there that might give some indications, some early warning signs, some things going on. You'll notice we have a target feature here. Targets are optional, and if you're achieving your targets, it's green, in this case 100%, and if you're not, it's red. Now, in this case, solid waste wasn't fearful of having a target. But I can tell you, a lot of departments don't really want the targets, and that's okay. And one reason is thinking back on the balanced scorecard. I don't know if anybody was here then. You may have been. There was a big panic if it was red. Okay, that meant, okay, we got changed. You can change the target. You can do all these different things. No, you might have a stretch target. You might be trying to achieve a lot more, all that sort of thing. But I think targets are useful for a lot of things, not number of deaths or numbers of things like that, but for some things. Like animal care, they have a target in there. They have one target here for numbers of animals adopted, and so 50, more than 50, yes, sir.
When you hover over the blue writing versus
Yes. Okay.
I was just making sure that it gave the direction or gave a little short explanation of what
Yeah, it
the
does.
measures are right there, and that's what
And
I
I
was
need to
looking at.
carefully go through all
Couldn't
of
tell if that was
those.
there.
But yes, it does. I know
Yeah.
that. You noticed it already? All right.
I was just checking it because I couldn't tell if that's what it was or if it was a hot link to the next page or what was popping up.
No, it's
But
good.
thank you. No, that's great.
No, I like that. We need to go through, and I think most of them are accurate. I work real closely with each department. It's a collaborative effort, and I should have mentioned that. With every department, I've got a key point, key contact, and so it's that person and me doing this. It's programming, data collection, they enter the data. There's a lot of other things. You can tell probably that I'm excited about this because I think we have the best anywhere. In fact, I know we do. If we looked at a lot of other cities, we modeled this after other cities, but took aspects of different things. One of the things that makes it great is that it's conceptually solid. You've got the mission, element, goal, measure thing. We've got the charting. It's not just a PDF. If you look at Boston or Houston, they're just PDF pages. This is truly interactive. Now, looking to the future, we're going to do a couple things. One, we have to finish up the departments. That's in short order, next several months. We want to have a benchmark to other cities. Our vision has been be the benchmark city in Texas, blah, blah, blah. Well, what does that mean? How do we know? Now, we had benchmarks before in our previous CPR. The CPR has been rewritten and redesigned on a more modern platform and all of that. We're going to revisit that and really establish some good benchmarks to other cities. Another thing we're going to do is have a page for the city as a whole. Well, tax rate versus whatever. These things that aren't department specific. So I think I've cut down 20 minutes to 10 right here. And stand by for any questions if you have them.
Ms. Opal?
Thank you. So, Mr. Selman, would you say that our departments are embracing stepping into this role, using the performance measures and having them available to the public to say, hey, how are we doing?
Yes.
You said that very succinctly. You know, I know that often it's a challenge when we actually put our performance out for others to see, but it certainly helps us understand what we're measuring, what we think is important, and how well we are doing to achieve that which we think is important. So there may be, as you said, legitimate reasons why numbers look a particular way, and I think that's a very powerful statement for this city to stand forward and say, we're going to put that out there. The other thing is this is on a software platform? Is this some type of software? And I just want to make sure that when it comes back again, we know that it will.
Wait, what was the exact?
So this is a software platform.
It
right?
is.
It's like a plug-in that you get.
It's
for,
on the
it's
on
an
the
app.
cloud.
No, I'm just kidding.
One of the reasons that I say it's one of the best, it's not just a little PDF web thing here.
Right.
It's a true database underlying this. That's why we can analyze. I can change on those charts. You could get different time periods. There's interaction going on here.
So this is actually a benchmark for the city in terms of when we have software that we would like to purchase, we should use this as the example.
No.
And never mind.
Okay, and I left off some other things on that, and let me just point out. On Summit, this is a true database. We've got it designed by a consultant. It's not done by our T department. We contracted it out. And I do the conceptual stuff. They do the programming, of which I don't know much about. The thing that I wanted to point out, I should have, some of the data here is tied into databases. For example, if you looked at police department, well, I can just tell you.
Mr. Klepper, I'm going to tell you that this
The
council.
data is coming from a database.
You're talking about that far above my head. I think I get it.
All right.
It's a really robust system and it's done well.
Yes.
And I do appreciate the fact that you made the comment because I actually made a note that said we need one for the city of Corpus Christi, including the number of square miles, you know, how many school districts, what's our budget, what's our tax rate. And I think when we get that overlay, it really helps explain some of these numbers that we see, which is we're being very efficient given how we're growing and the density that we have. So thank you very much for all the great work. Very interesting, and we're very supportive of trying to get some messaging out there that's great about how good we're doing.
Right.
Okay, any other comments? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. You got something else, Keith?
Quick update, Mayor, from the Budget Director.
Well, be glad we're on our way to lunch, so you.
It was not my intent to deceive you with Steve's presentation.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Eddie Houlihan with the Office of Management and Budget. I'm here to discuss the April 30th, the 7 months ended April 30th budget report. Quite a few things that I'm going to talk about is things that you've heard before, and I'll just jump right into it. The first slide you see there is the general fund revenues. First item on the list, property taxes. In the past, we've said we are lagging a little bit, and the tax office told us that quite a few citizens took advantage of the option to pay their taxes quarterly in January, March, May, and July, I believe. And looking a month ahead of this into May, we had a significant collection in May, and after May, the 8 months ended in May, we were only about 0.3% off of what we would expect, where we'd expect to be. So we think this is this revenue is going to be fine. Next item, sales tax. More good news. Continues to do well. About $2.1 million over our budget amounts, and we got another month a couple of days ago, and about $500,000 over what we had budgeted. The next item, other taxes, is again that's the industrial lieu of tax that we've talked about before.
You
Okay,
said
go ahead.
how much over what you budgeted? On your sales tax?
2.1, 7 months ended April, and in May, it was about $500,000 over, which you don't see here. We just got that a couple of days ago, so it continues to perform well.
Okay, but, and let me just ask you for budget purposes, and I think we talked about this, but I mean, you're not taking this as that may be something we can expect next year in our budget planning, are you? This kind of increase?
No, no.
I mean, this is a Hurricane Harvey hump.
That's what we think, and we budgeted about 54 million. We estimate 57 million.
On
But if
sales
this
tax?
continues, we'll be above that.
On sales tax?
Yes, sir. It's either the far
You're
right-hand
showing-
column,
You're showing 31 million.
well, the far right-hand column there. Annual amended budget, 53.9 million.
That was last
You
year's
with me?
budget.
That's this
Or
year's
this is the
budget.
budget we're in now.
Yes, sir.
And I
And
haven't
so-
seen the proposed budget, you're about those same numbers?
Proposed budget, for 19 currently, we have 56 million in there. We expect to get 57 million or more than 57 million this current year.
All right. I'm a canary. You got 53 budgeted for this year,
54, yes.
and we're at 32 now.
Yes.
Five
Well, 34.3, or 34.3.
All right, and that's 6 months, January, February,
7
March,
months.
April, well, October, November, December, January, February, March. So you're 7 months into your fiscal year.
Yes, sir.
And so you're projecting how much for this year?
57. Got another 5 months.
$4 million over what you projected.
3
Budget.
million. All right.
Well, you're right,
54,
53.9, that's
yeah.
54, and you're going to 57.
Yes, sir.
So my question is, what did you budget, or what do we have in the budget projected for next year? We haven't gotten there yet, but you've got a number you're working on.
56 million. $1 million less than what we're projecting this year.
But the only, maybe I'm wrong, but I think the only reason you're doing as well in the sales tax is because of hurricane. If we had another hurricane, we might not be making projections, what my point is.
Point well
So,
taken.
I think we ought to tread softly on what we're projecting for the sales tax for next year. I could be mistaken, I hope I am, but anyway, keep 'em going, I'm sorry.
Okay. Franchise fees, $2.3 million down. This is mostly electric franchise, which is fine. Electric franchise, very consistent. But the telecommunications and cable are a little off. We would expect those to be a little under budget, not 2.3 million, but potentially around 400,000 to 500,000. The number of lines in telecommunications has dropped. Dropping down to public safety. That's 911 wire line. The number of lines continues to decline. We've talked about a lot of this in the past. Towing and storage charges has improved, but we would have a difficult time reaching the $1,695,000 we budgeted in that specific revenue category. Emergency call revenue, we budgeted $6 million or about $500,000 a month. That has drastically improved the last couple months. The first 6 months of the year, we were averaging about $385,000. In month 7, we got 612 in April, and then in May, which you don't see in this report, we got 714,000. So if we average 600,000 over the last 4 months of this year, we would hit the $6 million mark that we budgeted. Where a couple months ago we thought that was unattainable, but it looks like a possibility now. Recreation services, about 3/4 of the way down, 369. We think that that's largely seasonal, and that's going to increase quite a bit here in the summer months. Park and Director Jay just said all their programs are full for the summer, and they expect to have a good summer.
Wait just a minute. Now, you're saying all the programs are full.
That's what he just relayed to me, yes.
Well, we had public comment here, people saying nobody's signing up. So, public comment is just to be listened to, and accuracy is something to be questioned, or what?
Well, I'd have to call on Jay to
Well, I mean,
get
something.
further into that.
Here's my dilemma, and
Okay.
I'm not trying to argue with you, but it's very misleading and very unfair to the public and to the staff and the council in general, because we're the ones that catch the blame, is if somebody gets up here and just calculatingly makes misstatements, you know, and I mean, I'm pretty refrained, and I was getting pretty close this morning, because they were just misstatement after misstatement after misstatement. I haven't got time to correct all those misstatements. But there ought to be something in there, either in the public period, that we've got a correction statement period after the public comments. Now, this, half of what you just heard wasn't right, or we've got to have staff down here to refute what they're doing. And as soon as somebody makes a misstatement, we're going to say, or I'm going to get me a bell and say, here's somebody that can tell you the truth or the facts. Because it's very misleading for people to come up here, and I mean, they come up here calculatingly know that, you know, your hands are tied, you're going to get to slap them around, and they're not going to say anything. So, if we want to change the procedure for public comment, there's several things I think we can do. One is that we can eliminate it altogether, because it is a privilege, it's not an obligation that we have public comment, right? You're the lawyer, we're not obligated to provide public comment.
We can eliminate public comment, Mayor. We
Or if
would
they
be
want-
required to listen to comments during public hearings, of course.
Now, or if they want to submit public comments in writing, that's fine. And then we'll read them and we'll pass them on. Or we're going to have to devise some method within the rules that says either a big bell's going to come down or somebody with a water gun's going to squirt them or something when we know they knowingly making broad brush statements of misstatement of facts. So I'm going to work on that. I don't have a solution now, but I don't want to penalize legitimate people that have interest in coming down and making public comments, that have sincere concerns. But I sense that, and it may be because election times are coming up here in the future, that some of these folks may be plotting their strategy. I don't know what the motivation is, but you know, it's a waste of a lot of people's time if they're coming up here just making blatant misstatements. So anyway, Ms. Guajardo, what else you got? Let's go.
I have a quick comment on that. Do we not, we have been able in the past, Mr. Selman, for the mayor to direct you, as does the police chief, as he did today, to, you know, not escort the person, but to go and have a quick conversation with them about it. Aren't we able to do that? Because I think there are a lot of issues that should be addressed, and not, it could be by a look over to, you know, someone needs to talk to that person. I personally think it's rude that we don't address, not we, I mean we as a city, do not address something that is very legitimate, number one. But number two would be that, you know, everyone, we're here for them. They have to have a voice. And even though it gets lengthy, and even though it could be redundant, we should remember that a lot of things said here are things that come from this organization. You know, the libraries, closing of senior centers. We never said we were going to, but we never said we weren't. And I think things like that need to be clarified because it isn't fair. And so when people come up here, it's out of, I heard this, and we are not correcting it to say, yeah, maybe, but in between maybe that meeting, we got a memo that said such and such. So I agree with the mayor, it needs to be taken care of, and honestly, I feel like it should be as it has been in the past, where someone escorts the person and says, you know, here's the deal. The gentleman that, Chief Markle, you looked back there, gave the look, they went out there with that gentleman. He thought that we're too busy. We're too busy for his slashing of tires. We don't have enough police officers for that. That's the problem. So anyway, I won't get into that, but I agree this is a big issue. It's a comment right now, but it's a big issue that our constituents know what is going on.
Okay, keep going. So, okay, they're full. All right.
I'll go into expenditures. We don't have any major concerns on the expenditure side in the general fund. Solid waste, about 2/3 of the way down, the negative 257 in the variance column. I'm reading from the year-to-date area. Storm expenditures, we expect to get reimbursed for that. We already have got reimbursed for some of it. And then the operating transfer out the $1.1 million, that's all of the residential street transfer was done at one time, so it's just a timing thing. So that's going to come back into line. I'm going to go on now into the other funds. Dropping down to the enterprise funds there, where we show a revenue short of about $7.4 million. That's bad enough, but it's actually a little worse than that because we had a significant one-time revenue in the water fund that is related to the refunding of the Choke Canyon Bureau of Reclamation debt, which that was about $9.9 million of one-time revenue that kind of skews that number. So the number in the revenue column in the variance is really around $16 million. About $4 million of that, of the $16 million, is gas, which is not a concern. It's just the price of gas. So we buy the gas for less. When we sell it to the customer, the cost of the product is less. So it's about a $4 million drop in revenues and expenditures. So that washes out. However, water and wastewater areas is a concern to us. A little over $7 million in water, about 5.8 in wastewater. Water, ICL residential, $3 million down. Large volume, about 300,000. ICL large volume. Outside city limits commercial, about 1.2, and raw water, about 1.6. Late and disconnect fees. Now we know we're going to be short here because we gave a pass due to the storm activity, so we haven't been doing this. So that's about 900,000 short. We budgeted 2.1 million in disconnect and late fees, so we know we're going to be short there. However, in a lot of the other areas, frankly, we're unable to connect the dots and come to some conclusion as to why this is the case. So we formed a team that's looking in water and wastewater.
Well, if you're not collecting your bills, that's one of the things. I think we better make sure we got our bill collection process set up. I mean, we found that big problem,
Right.
and I don't know how much more is out there, but we need to get aggressive on that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Mayor, as he was fixing to say, we're putting together a team to get into the nuts and bolts of that and get a solution to that.
Mr. Hunter? Is it Opal?
I'll wait.
Keep going.
Okay. We'll move on into the internal service area. Revenue about 6.5 million under what we budgeted. This is the engineering, which hasn't been. They're working on the billing, so they'll be putting the billings out for the projects, and mostly the projects from departments use some engineering services. So we should be getting that here in the next month. The other area, City Care Health, which I've mentioned before, 2.5 million, because more employees went to the value plan than was budgeted. The less expensive value plan, you have a corresponding decrease in expenditures. Debt service is just timing differences. These funds, except for the GO debt, which collects property tax, these funds are just exist to transfer money from the the paying department into the debt service, and then a debt payment is made. So it's timing differences in that area. Dropping down into special revenue, about $5.3 million, $5.3 million over in revenue. This is good news. The HOT continues to perform well. So about $1.6 million of that 5.2 is due to both the HOT funds, the regular HOT fund and the state HOT fund. Development services is doing well. They're about $1.7 million, almost $1.8 million over budgeted revenues. And then the other significant overage is in all the funds that their primary revenue source is sales tax, the Type A, now one of the Type B, and the crime control fund. Those four areas are about $1.65 million over in the revenue, mostly due to increased sales tax. So that's all I have, Mayor and Council. I'll entertain any questions.
All right, Ms. Opal.
So I'm going to come back sort of in the budgeting concept. So in the general fund, as it stands today, in the projection towards year end, there's going to be $3 million in incremental revenue that was not budgeted or anticipated in the budget that was presented and adopted by the council. Is that correct?
Sales tax, that would be correct.
There are other expenditures within this budget that have fallen short and are creating fiscal challenges. And my point is this. I'm not comfortable just netting those out and going, yay, see, this went up and this went down and it all came out to be zero. I think in this particular case, had we not had that hurricane and had our sales tax not gone up, we would be in quite the pickle. Would that be correct?
Likely we would have to go do a mid-year budget adjustment.
And I am concerned that we are staring out at the future budget, and that is exactly what we're going to have to do in the future, and we're using these unanticipated sales tax revenues to take care of this year, and we're not doing the heavy lifting that we would have been required to do had we not had a hurricane. And I'm not sure how to articulate that, because it sort of everybody's sort of got the sigh of relief, yay, we got this extra money. And I think what the mayor was alluding to is we shouldn't be budgeting what our future sales tax for next year is off of this year. We got to go back at least until what we budgeted for this year, the budgeted number. And I'm not even sure we need to increase it over that unless you guys see something we don't know. So I'm really worried about sort of the lack of connection between the fact that we have expenditures and revenues that did not come in that we budgeted for. And I'm going to challenge you to go figure out how we missed it. Because if we don't understand how we missed those numbers, we're going to go do it again this year, and then we're going to end up in the hole next year and go, I don't know, I don't get it. And so I really would feel so much better understanding kind of how did we miss that? Well, we didn't, the landlines are going down. All right, well, now we know that, so we better take a much bigger chunk next year. We need to understand why we're missing these numbers, and that's not something that I've heard, except that we know that this went up because we had sales tax because of Harvey. So I'm just going to challenge you, Mr. Houlihan. I need to understand, yes, they're down, but what did we do to understand why they're down, and how are we going to plan for that for next year? So that's number one. And number two, on the water and wastewater, I have heard so many comments. We are getting ready, I believe, to have probably an avalanche of people who are concerned about wastewater rates. I have actually been asked, and this is something, Mr. Selman, that you may need to go back and check, whether or not those calculations that were put in place are actually the right calculations. Not that anybody would ever doubt some of our information technology that we've purchased for millions of dollars. So I'm really going to ask that there be this group that's being put together to look at this. They spend some quality time going all the way back, taking year-over-year assessments. Now we have real numbers. So last year we were projecting based on what we thought January, February, March, April were going to look like. Now we need to take some of those actual bills that have come out, and we need to be able to look at those and say, is this really what we thought was going to happen? Because, and heaven forbid that it starts raining, because we think our wastewater numbers are down now. If I'm not mistaken, when it rains and people turn off their sprinkler systems and they're not using water, that direct correlation is going to have an adverse impact on wastewater. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we just really need to understand what could happen in that scenario. If we have, an unusually wet summer, that could have some really big challenges and a big hit to that. So maybe what we thought was great might not turn out to be quite as forward-thinking as we thought last summer, and so just really help us feel confident in that as we move into the budget for next year. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, and Mr. Selman, thank you for putting a task force or a working group on the enterprise fund. Mr. Houlihan, I'd like to see in the notes, you don't make any, you don't mention the dollar amount of the Bureau of Rec one-time gain on it. And since it's a material amount, just as we're going through these financials, I'd sure like to see that, because since it is an extraordinary item and not an operating item, it skews the financials hard. So just from a clarity standpoint, I'd like to see that included, either on the statement line or in the notes.
Yeah, about 10.9 million refunded from the Bureau of Reclamation, and then I think about $1.1 million in oil and gas leases that apparently had accumulated over a long period of time that they don't give back until the end of the term, but maybe somebody can correct me if that's incorrect. That's what the information that I got. So it's a significant amount. We get that to you.
Four times Sam Kane. So as we're looking at it and evaluating these numbers, it's very important we know the wherewithal behind those numbers. So thank you.
Sure. Yes, sir.
So that's money that came in that was unexpected. That's what you're saying as a result of that?
Yeah,
refund?
we correct.
Yeah, okay. All right, anything else? I'm not sure I'm a whole lot smarter than I was when you started, but I appreciate all the information. Yeah, I'm not, that's why I didn't go into accounting.
Well, I will, on the sales tax, I will say that we've talked to folks, and including the economist, and he was of the opinion a few months ago that I was of the opinion we were going to see a drop, and he was of the opinion that we're not going to see that. So, but we can certainly look at that number again. And
Was he from here? Well, and I can tell you, if you're going to institute water rationing or water management, we're going to see a drop in revenue. It's not only the wastewater, it's going to be your water. So
yes, sir.
We've got a challenge ahead of us. Okay, are we finished then with our budget update? Have you got some other
No, I
things
don't have
you need
anything
to say? Mr. Manager, you got anything else?
I was just going to say, Mayor, that as we get to finalization of the budget, you will receive a balanced budget, and it will have legitimate revenue projections.